Hello there, it's been a while since my last devlog and I'm very sorry for that, but life has been busy and work was so stressful and for this devlog, I'm planning to improve the combat mechanics in my game. Currently, I have top-of-the-line ranged combat implemented in my game, but I also want to have a robust melee combo or some sort of attack string. So for this devlog, I have to tackle 4 main things: player knockback, melee attacks, enemy knockback, and enemy AI. So okay, right now, let's just say my player knockback is quite bad. So it's like he's being tickled or something. And I think it's very important for the player to be able to know if the player is taking damage.
That's a lot of damage!
So my plan is to make the sprite do a flashing animation while getting knocked back on the x-axis. Simplicity is key, so I just made one frame of a staggering pose in a sprite. And then for the flashing animation, I just used a shader code from the internet, because I'm not really smart enough to make a shader script, but basically it lets me alter the sprite's color, and by using it along with the animation player in Godot, it makes my character go flashy flashy. Okay, by the way, if you're going to use this also in your games, make sure to reset the shader after the flashing animation, or else it makes your character be paler every time he gets knocked back, or I don't know. If you don't want to, just call it feature. So how everything works is every time a player collides with an enemy, a knockback timer is started, and a bull basically turns on in order for the script to know when to knock back my character. But I realized that using the state machine that I made and implementing a knockback state is much more cleaner instead of relying on a bunch of if conditions. And this way I can control what the player can and cannot do while being knocked back. And this is how everything turned out. Nice and easy. Totally didn't take a couple of weeks to fix. Yep. Next up was the melee attack. Okay, going into this, I didn't have a slightest bit of clue on what to do. From the animations to the implementation of the combo string itself, I didn't know where to start. So my plan was to make a 3 melee combo string, okay? So I decided to start with the animations first. I didn't really know how a polearm is used in combat, so I had to look up a bunch of references, and I ended up with these melee animations. First is a swiping animation. Second is some kind of poking animation and kinda like a butt stab. And third is like an overhead smack. And of course, it was really important while making these animations that I made sure to test them inside the game and made some adjustments accordingly. Now for the more technical side. How do I string them together with successive player inputs? Or in English, button mashing? Well, first of all, in order for the enemies to detect the melee attack, I made some sort of melee hitbox collision thingy. So the collision box is only enabled in some points of the attack animation. The shape also changes depending on the animation itself, but of course, since it's my first time implementing it, wasn't really that straightforward. Nah, it was easy. Totally didn't take a couple of weeks to fix. Yep, for the melee string mechanic, at first I used a wonky system. Basically, I stored the melee string information in an array and just looped the array over and over again. But yep, it didn't work. Turns out that the solution again was my state machine. I'm sorry, I don't know why I keep not thinking of trying out my state machine first before deciding on another solution. But I tried it and I made a state for each melee attack and then just transition the state whenever the player presses the attack button. So yeah, with that I was able to make a somewhat bearable melee combo string. So for the third item, enemy knockback. Same as my player knockback, it is currently pretty bad or rather non-existent. I think it is very important for the player to know if your attacks are hitting or missing, or you might as well just play some buggy game like League. Then to add more game feel, I played around with Godot's particle system and tried to add some hit effects for more feedback, and it's coming along very nicely. And now for the last item, enemy AI. Currently, our friend here, Mr. Slime, only moves around back and forth and doesn't interact at all with our player's presence. So to start, I placed some sort of collision box in order for the slime to detect the player's presence. Basically, if the player's body enters or exits the collision box, the slime would know. So the intended behavior is that the slime would approach the player if the player gets in range. So let's quickly code that and let's see how it turns out. Okay, that might have been too aggressive. Let's dial it down a bit. Alright, there. Also, I wanted the slime to headbutt the player if the player gets too close, so I made another collision box for that. I also made this death animation for the slime. But you see, with all these behaviors and some added behavior for idle and death, my singular slime code can't keep up with all the condition it needs to handle and it seems to bug out. So now, can you guess how I solved it? A. I didn't give up. B. Gave up. C. State machine. And after fixing so many bugs, which totally didn't take a couple of weeks, I was able to end up with this combat sequence. And that's it for this devlog. The amount of content I've done doesn't really match up with the time gap between this devlog and my last one. And I know that I'm not the very best lately in keeping up with my uploading schedule, but I'll still try my very best. And hopefully you guys can stick around. So once again, thank you and I'll see you on the next one.